In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're absolute dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast.
Welcome to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that teaches you how to unlock the freedom that you deserve with your dog.
Now, this is such a typical struggle that we're receiving.
Yeah.
We receive this struggle probably on a day-to-day basis, maybe 10, 15, 20 times. Our Ask team, our amazing customer service team, this is a sort of struggle that I know is very, very typical, very, very common, very, very normal. And yet it's a struggle and it's a pain and it hurts and it can really affect your relationship with your dog and, to be honest, everyone else who's around at the time. So Chris, who is part of our Game Changer community, Chris says, I have got to change our recall word. We've corrupted it. Our cum word basically has no meaning anymore. I have no imagination. I'm wondering what words others use for recall. I've got English setters just in case someone is inspired by that. Now, the thing is with Chris's problem is that, yes, of course we can change the word, and the word is absolutely easy to change. In fact, that's the easiest bit we can do. We could change it to, I don't know, let's look around the room for some inspiration. I could change it to pro, dog, or trainer, which is what's on Tom's top. I could change it to purple or pink or black or red. I could change it to any word I want. The word is actually very non-important, really, in the big grand scheme of things, right, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. Instead, what we want you to think about is almost like a recall cake, where the majority of the cake
I like the sound of this.
is not to do with the word. The icing on the cake is the recall word itself, but that cake, the majority of that cake is actually the skills, the value, the desire to be close, to want to check in. And, you know, we to the point where with our dogs, we could make any noise and they would be like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm going to come and check it out. And that's because it's built, that cake is built, right? They've got a desire to be close. Any excuse to be close, they're like, we want to be close. They've got that desire to check in. They've got that desire for orientation. They know that we're going to provide them with good experiences. And in turn, you can make any noise at all. You could say any word at all. And they'd be like, that sounds like a really great deal.
Now, I'll be honest, Tom. You had me at cake. Yeah, cake, I'm all in. Now, let's be thinking about this. Recall, so many people poison it, right? Like they poison it. And the way that they poison it, I was watching someone only the other day and they had a lovely little dog. Her name was Ruby. And Ruby was having a lovely time. And it was Ruby, Ruby come, Ruby, 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 Ruby. Ruby, will you come here, Ruby? Ruby, Ruby.
Yeah.
And literally it just got more and more, to be honest, scary and a little bit intimidating. And then it kind of was like, Ruby, Ruby. And they literally were chasing her around. We were in sort of a park, a big grass park. And Ruby was really, really absolutely playing keep away. And they were getting more and more frustrated. Her name was being more and more poisoned and used. They continued to keep poisoning and using that name and then layering it with maybe a lot of emotion. It just wasn't going to get any better, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And so when you find yourself in that situation, what we want you to remember is it's not the word. Yeah, the word, we're going to change the word. Yes, it has been poisoned. The word now means keep away. But what we've got to think is if you've got a really solid cake made up of a dog that really wants to be close, has value in proximity, has value in focus, has value in disengaging from the environment, then actually your recall should still be there. And so actually what this highlights is that we need to go back to building that cake. Now, how do we build that cake?
I think one of the most important important things is that it has to be a good deal, and it has to be a good deal for your dog, not for you. So, for example, Tokyo, as a young dog, he was foodie if it was high value, but if it was low value, he was disinterested. If it was a toy, he was interested in every single toy, and if it was me and movement and praise, he always loved those things. Now, change that for Classic. She was food. Inhale any food. Blink. Inhale any food. Like loved food. Like food, and baby tennis balls. The big thing here is that we've got to consider what is valuable to your dog, and also actually how is it sort of portable? Can you take it with you? Because ultimately what you want to do is you want to transfer the value of the thing that your dog really, really wants, the food, the toy, the cheese, the chicken, whatever it might be, to their recall. As soon as you've got that transfer of value happening and you've built that proximity, then actually you're going to have a great recall. Now, I think so many people get it wrong, Tom, because they think it is just the recall. So Monty was a brilliant example of this. Lots of you will have heard through the Sexier Than Squirrel program, or some of our videos, maybe our recall training, because we do have the whistle sort of emergency recall training available. And loads of you have heard about Monty. And Monty, what I realised when I was out and about with him is that actually, Tom, it wasn't just recall that was the problem. It was actually generally wanting to hang out with you. So I think that recall is kind of only the icing on the cake compared to proximity.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the other thing to think about here with value is that value is relative, right? You know, if you give me the choice of, I don't know, if you give me the choice of fizzy water or still water, I'll be honest, I'm probably going to pick the still water, right? And yet, if you give me the choice of still water or, I don't know, a glass of wine, I'm probably going to pick the wine.
Or if we give you a choice of tap water or bottled water, you'd probably pick
bottled water.
So I think it is all it's
relative.
All
in what you put yourself up against sometimes, because that cake is going to grow the more history your dog has of choosing you and it being the right choice and leading to the best experience. Now, that might mean that you need to grow your value at home, grow the value of food, grow the value of toys, grow the value of the games at home, and then think about 10 locations that you could go to where you're still going to be the best deal.
The sexiest of all squirrels.
And then what you can do, as your dog has this history of picking you, and that was absolutely the right deal, then you can put them in situations where actually you're secretly not the best deal, but you've had that history of them getting the best deal from you, and so they assume the best deal. That's what a recall is.
Now, I was just thinking about, I couldn't help myself, I wanted to just check out whether he maybe had something out there to see. I wanted to give an example of him, but I haven't prepped it. So I was thinking one of the people who's really good in our sort of game changer community at knowing a good deal for his dog is Kev.
Yeah.
Like, Kev is a brilliant game changer. In fact, he's a master of games. He's fantastic, and he's got a dog that can be a little bit sniffy. Now, if when Kev's dog is a little bit sniffy, Kev continues to go on and on and on and on and on about that he's got some brilliant biscuit, in perspective for that dog, or putting it into sort of context, the dog isn't going to get a good deal from him versus what she's doing in terms of her scent world, right, Tom? So it's also about leveling it up and working it out. I remember walking in the woods with my dogs, and there were deer. When you get deer and you're going to offer them a bit of a cookie and a biscuit or a treat, you know what? That isn't going to cut it. No. So actually you need to think about, what have I got in my sort of skill set or my toolbox? For my dogs, it might be a squeaky tennis ball. It might be me running in the other direction. It might be me being a completely crazy lady, which you guys will know is true. It might be some high value chicken. I remember with Tiki, when I was teaching her, a very, very elderly dog, she's now 14 and a half. With her, I remember using high value rotisserie chicken to train her, like warm from the supermarket, to train her some of the behaviours that she had. I'd pick it up warm deliberately, knowing that would combat the most difficult of things, right? Like it's knowing those. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. And whether your dog is receptive to that is based on how consistently have you been the best deal, and they were right to pick you in situations prior to this. And so you can change anything in 3 weeks. And if you committed for the next 3 weeks to say, actually, this isn't about the word that I'm using. Yeah, I'm going to teach them a new word, the icing on the cake, but I need to build the cake first. And so I'm going to build desire in the way that I interact with my dogs and the way that I reward my dogs in the games. I'm going to then build it, and then start to show them that I'm still the best deal in maybe, I don't know, 5 different locations.
And these locations are picked as low-key ones. So we might pick a sort of sensibly enclosed paddock, or we might pick somewhere where there's very little distraction, or we might pick a friend's garden, or we might pick somewhere within our own house.
The pavement outside our house.
It might be take the dog to the supermarket, your partner goes shopping, and you train in the supermarket car park for 2 minutes. Like, we're talking small places, right? Like, not big. When we say small, I mean places with low-level distractions.
Absolutely. And then what you can start to do is you can start to expand this world, knowing that you've got this history of giving your dog the best deal and you being the best deal.
Now, something else, and I think this is really vital to know, because some of you are going to need to repair effectively a good word or cue to be able to allow your dog to understand recall again from where you were. Now, when you're doing this repairing, I think it's really, really important that you know that you've poisoned it maybe in the past. So let's not use this word or name in vain. So say, for example, I had a lovely student. Her name was Shirley, and she had a really beautiful little terrier. His name was Buddy. Now, instead of calling him Buddy for his recall, she literally came up with a whole new word, and it was very, very simple word, and it was here, and that was it. Like, she didn't use Buddy anymore. She stopped using Buddy. She stopped using come, and here was in that sort of tone and pitch, and it was her recall cue. Here, you might pick a whistle recall. You might pick, like we have with a whistle recall sort of program that you guys could access. It could be something completely like pink, blue, yellow. It doesn't matter what you use. The most important thing is you don't use it in vain. So what she doesn't do, Shirley with a little terrier Buddy, she doesn't say here, 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 here. And here's the key. I was out on the beach the other day. There's a lady with a beagle, and oh my God, if she whistled once, she whistled 150 times, Tom. This dog's whistle was poisoned by 10 minutes into the walk. The most important thing is you don't keep using it. If your dog does not come, you either go and get your dog, you do something to distract them, to bring them back, and you gently and casually pop them back on lead, and then you reassess that. But what you don't do is continue to allow it to have problems. Right?
Absolutely. And so the key is build the cake. The icing on the cake is easy to put on. Don't overuse the icing. And then you are going to have a very reliable recall.
I think notice things, spot things, be vigilant. Watch for your dog who's maybe trying to play keep away part way around the walk and think, I'm not going to call him. This is not the time. Use a puppy line or a long line. We've got them on the Absolute Dogs website. You can access them. Pick them up on the walk rather than call your dog back. Use tactics and strategies that enable you. And you can see I've had a dog with a recall problem. So you know, like, we know these strategies. We've worked through them. And so your dog doesn't necessarily think that they are being captured. You know what? We have absolutely got this. The most important thing is you now continue not to poison that recall. You change it, you mix it up, and you become a vigilant dog owner.
Absolutely. And there are many resources available to help you, from the Sexier Than a Squirrel Challenge to the Recall Rescue Program, right through to that Training a Whistle Recall Program.
That whistle recall program is literally immense at teaching this whiplash recall back. You can also purchase the whistle that goes for the magic whistle recall course on the Absolute Dogs website.
So with that, guys, that was this episode of the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. It is not about the icing, it is about the cake. We will see you next time. Remember, stay sexy. Hey, before you go, have you taken part in the worldwide Sexier Than a Squirrel Challenge?
It's a 25-day online video program. Huge energy, amazing community, and over 6,000 people are already taking part.
The only question is, you know where you are today. Where do you want to be 25 days from now? Head to absolutedogs.me/sexy.